It was a bright, sunny Saturday morning. The kind of day where the birds chirped loud, the sky was blue, and you could smell fresh grass all around. In a little house on Maple Street, 12-year-old Timmy Baxter bounced out of bed with a huge smile. He grabbed his hammer from the toolbox under his bed, ran downstairs, and zoomed out to his backyard. Today was the day. He was ready to build something super cool, something awesome that would make everyone's eyes pop wide open. To all the grown-ups and kids in the neighborhood, Timmy was just a regular boy. He had messy brown hair that stuck up like he'd just rolled out of bed. His clothes were always a little dirty from playing outside, and he had this big, goofy grin that made people laugh. "Oh, that's just Timmy," they'd say, shaking their heads. "He's a funny kid, always messing around." Nobody thought he was special. Nobody thought he could do anything big. They saw him as a silly little guy who liked to run around and make noise. But guess what? They were so wrong. Timmy wasn't just some kid banging nails into wood for no reason. Oh no, he had a secret. A big, sneaky, clever secret that would turn his whole neighborhood upside down. What was it? Hang on tight, because you're about to find out. Timmy stood in the backyard, looking at the pile of wood his dad had left there. It wasn't much, just some old boards and a few rusty nails. But to Timmy it was treasure. He could see something amazing in his head, like a picture only he knew about. He picked up a piece of wood, set it down on the grass, and started hammering. Bang, 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 the sound echoed through the yard, loud and sharp. His hands moved fast, and his grin got even bigger. He wasn't just playing around, he was building something. Something important, something nobody else could guess. The sun climbed higher in the sky, and Timmy kept working. Sweat dripped down his forehead, but he didn't care. He wiped it away with his sleeve and grabbed another nail. Bang, bang, every hit made him feel stronger, like he was putting a piece of his secret into place. He didn't tell anyone what he was doing, not his mom, not his dad, not even his best friend Joey, who lived next door. Nope, this was all his, a mystery just for him. And the best part, nobody had a clue what was coming. Not the neighbors walking their dogs, not the mailman dropping letters, not even the nosy lady across the street who watched everything. They all thought, oh, it's just Timmy being Timmy. But soon they'd see, soon they'd all be shocked. Let's talk about Timmy for a second. He wasn't tall like some kids in his class. He wasn't super fast at running or great at math, but he was smart in a different way, a sneaky, quiet way. He liked to watch things. He'd sit on his porch and see how the birds built their nests or how the ants carried crumbs across the sidewalk. He'd notice stuff other people missed, like how the wind made the trees bend or how the shadows moved when the sun went down. That's what made Timmy special. He saw the world like a big puzzle, and he loved figuring out how to fit the pieces together. And now, with his hammer and his wood, he was making a puzzle of his own, one that would surprise everyone. Back in the yard, Timmy's pile of wood started to look like something. It wasn't just a mess anymore. He had stuck two boards together to make a post, like the start of a little fence. It wasn't tall or fancy, but it was his. He stepped back, hands on his hips, and nodded. "Good start," he said to himself. His voice was quiet, but his eyes sparkled with excitement. He could see it in his head, the whole plan, step by step. It wasn't just a fence, it was bigger than that. Way bigger. But he wasn't ready to show it yet. He had to keep going, keep building, keep the secret safe until the perfect moment. The neighborhood was buzzing that morning. Kids rode their bikes down the street laughing and shouting. Dogs barked at squirrels. A lawnmower hummed a few houses away, but Timmy didn't pay attention to any of it. He was in his own world, a world where every nail and every board meant something special. He grabbed another piece of wood and lined it up just right. Bang, bang, the hammer hit hard and the nail sank deep. He was fast now, like he couldn't stop. His hands knew what to do and his brain was racing with ideas. What was he making? Why was it such a big deal? You'll see soon, I promise it's worth the wait. Now let's zoom out a little. Maple Street was a quiet place most days. Small houses with neat yards lined up in a row, everyone knew everyone else. There was Mr. Jenkins, who always waved hello. There was Mrs. Carter, who baked cookies for the kids. And then there was Timmy's family, the Baxters. They were nice people, but nobody thought much about them. Timmy's dad worked a lot, and his mom grew flowers in the front yard. Timmy was just the kid who ran around with a stick, pretending to be a knight or a pirate. That's what people saw. But they didn't know the real Timmy. They didn't know what he could do when he put his mind to it. Back to the backyard. The sun was hot now and Timmy's shirt stuck to his back. He didn't mind. He liked the heat. It made him feel alive. He grabbed a cold glass of water from the porch and gulped it down, then got right back to work. Bang, bang, another board went up. The fence was growing little by little. It wasn't pretty yet, just a few wobbly posts sticking out of the grass. But Timmy didn't care how it looked right now. He knew what it would be. He could see the end in his mind, clear as day. And that's what kept him going. That's what made him smile, even when his arms got tired. A few neighbors walked by and peeked over the hedge. "What's that kid doing?" one of them asked. "Just playing with wood," another said with a shrug. They didn't stop to look closer. They didn't ask Timmy what was up. They just kept walking, thinking it was nothing, and that was perfect for Timmy. He wanted them to ignore him. He wanted them to think he was just a goofy kid with a hammer. Because when the time came when his secret came out, they'd all be amazed. They'd say, "Timmy did that, no way." And he'd just grin and nod. The morning turned into afternoon and Timmy kept at it. His hands were sore and his knees were green from kneeling in the grass, but he didn't stop. He couldn't stop. Every bang of the hammer was like a little promise, a promise that something big was coming. He added another post, then another. The fence was starting to stretch across the yard now. It wasn't tall, but it was long, long enough to make you wonder, long enough to make you think, what's he up to? But Timmy didn't give any hints. He just kept working, quiet and steady, like a turtle moving slow but sure. By now, you're probably dying to know, what's the secret? What's this kid building that's so special? I won't spill it all yet. That ruined the fun, but I'll give you a tiny clue. It's not just a fence. It's something that's gonna make the whole neighborhood talk. Something that's gonna turn Timmy from that goofy kid into that amazing kid. Can you guess? Maybe it's a fort. Maybe it's a trap. Maybe it's something nobody's ever seen before. Stick around, because the answer's coming, and it's gonna be a wild ride. Timmy wiped his hands on his shorts and looked at his work. The sun was starting to dip lower, painting the sky orange and pink. He'd been out there for hours, but it didn't feel like it. Time flew when he was building. He loved the sound of the hammer, the smell of the wood, the way the nails held everything together. It was his thing, his way of showing the world he wasn't just some kid. And soon, everyone would see it. Soon, they'd know. The sun was shining bright in the sky, and Timmy Baxter was still out in his backyard, hammering away at his secret project. The pile of wood was turning into something, a little fence post sticking up from the grass. He was happy, banging nails and smiling big. Everything felt perfect. But then trouble showed up. Her name was Mrs. Gertrude Harper, and oh boy, she was not happy. Mrs. Harper lived across the street from Timmy. Everyone called her the HOA Karen. HOA means Homeowners Association, and she was the boss of it. She was the kind of lady who loved rules more than anything. She'd walk around with a ruler in her pocket, measuring people's grass to make sure it wasn't too long. If your grass was half an inch taller than she liked, she'd yell at you until your ears hurt. If your mailbox was a tiny bit crooked, she'd knock on your door and complain. As if you left a bike in your driveway, she'd write you a mean note. Mrs. Harper thought she owned the whole neighborhood, and she made sure everyone knew it. That sunny Saturday morning, Mrs. Harper was in a bad mood. She'd already yelled at Mr. Jenkins for planting flowers she didn't like. She told little Sarah down the street that her chalk drawings on the sidewalk were messy. And now she was looking for someone else to boss around. That's when she saw Timmy in his backyard. Her sharp eyes zoomed in on his little fence post, and her face turned red, redder than a big ripe tomato. She didn't like what she saw, not one bit. Mrs. Harper marched across the street, her slippers slapping the pavement. She pushed open Timmy's gate and stormed into his yard like she was the queen of everything. Her arms were crossed and her lips were tight, like she'd just eaten a sour lemon. She stopped right in front of Timmy and pointed a bony finger at his fence post. "What's that ugly pile of junk?" she screeched. Her voice was so loud it made the birds fly away. "This is awful. It's a disgrace to our neighborhood. I'm calling 911 right now." Timmy stopped hammering for a second. He looked up at her, his hammer still in his hand. Mrs. Harper was tall and scary, with her gray hair pulled back tight and her eyes glaring down at him. Most kids would be afraid. Most kids would say sorry and run inside, but not Timmy. Nope, he just smiled, a small, quiet little grin that made his eyes twinkle. Then he went right back to hammering. Bang, bang, bang. He didn't say a word. He didn't argue. He just kept working, like Mrs. Harper wasn't even there. That made Mrs. Harper even madder. She wasn't used to kids ignoring her. She thought Timmy was just some silly little boy she could boss around. She thought he'd cry or beg her to stop yelling. But Timmy didn't do any of that. His smile stayed on his face and his hammer kept going. Bang, bang. Something about that smile made you wonder. What did Timmy know? Why wasn't he scared? What was hiding behind that goofy grin of his? Mrs. Harper didn't see it, but there was something special about Timmy, something she didn't understand yet. Mrs. Harper huffed and puffed, her face getting redder by the second. "You listen to me, young man," she shouted. "This junk is against the rule. The HOA says no ugly things in yards. You take it down right now or I'll make sure the police come and rip it up." She pulled out her phone and waved it in the air like it was a magic wand. "I'm calling 911. They'll fix this mess." She thought that would scare Timmy. She thought he'd drop his hammer and say, "Okay, I'll stop." But Timmy didn't. He just kept smiling and hammering. Bang, bang, bang. Now let's talk about Mrs. Harper for a minute. She wasn't always mean. A long time ago, she was just a regular lady who liked to bake cookies and chat with neighbors. But then she joined the HOA and something changed. She started caring about rules more than people. She wanted everything perfect, perfect grass, perfect houses, perfect yards. If something wasn't perfect, she got mad. And Timmy's little fence post, to her, it was the opposite of perfect. It was wobbly and small and made of old wood. She thought it made the whole street look bad. She thought Timmy was ruining everything. But Timmy didn't see it that way. To him, that fence post was the start of something awesome. He wasn't scared of Mrs. Harper's yelling or her phone or her rules. He had a plan, a secret plan, and he wasn't going to let her stop him. Every time she yelled, he just smiled bigger. Every time she pointed her finger, he hammered harder. Bang, bang. It was like he was saying, "Go ahead and yell, lady. I've got something up my sleeve." And that made Mrs. Harper nuts. She wasn't used to losing. She wasn't used to kids standing up to her, even if they didn't say a word. Mrs. Harper stomped her foot on the grass. "You're in big trouble, Timmy Baxter," she said. "I know your parents. I'll tell them what a bad kid you are. They'll make you stop this nonsense." She turned around and looked at Timmy's house like she was going to march inside and tattle right then. But Timmy's mom was at the store and his dad was at work. There was nobody home to hear her. Timmy knew that, and his grin got a little wider. He didn't say anything. He just kept working. Bang, bang, bang. By now, a few neighbors were peeking out their windows. They heard Mrs. Harper yelling and they wanted to see what was going on. "What's she mad about now?" Mr. Jenkins whispered to his wife. "Looks like Timmy's in trouble," she said back. They watched as Mrs. Harper waved her arms and shouted. They saw Timmy hammering away, calm as could be. It was funny, really. Big, loud Mrs. Harper against little, quiet Timmy. Who would win? Nobody knew yet, but it was starting to feel like a fight. Mrs. Harper didn't notice the neighbors watching. She was too busy being mad. She put her phone to her ear and pretended to call 911. "Hello, police," she said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "There's a kid breaking the rules in my neighborhood. He's building something ugly. Come quick." She wasn't really calling yet. She just wanted to scare Timmy. But Timmy didn't flinch. He didn't even look up. He just kept going. Bang, bang. His hands were steady and his smile didn't fade. It was like he knew something Mrs. Harper didn't, and that made her madder than ever. "You think you're so smart, don't you?" she snapped. "You think you can ignore me? Well, you're wrong. I run this neighborhood, I make the rules, and I say that junk has to go." She pointed at the fence post again, her finger shaking. She was so mad she could hardly stand still. But Timmy, he was cool as a cucumber. He wiped some sweat off his forehead and grabbed another nail. Bang, bang. He didn't argue. He didn't yell back. He just kept building, like Mrs. Harper was a noisy fly buzzing around his head. The tension was growing now. You could feel it in the air. Mrs. Harper was loud and angry, sure she'd win. Timmy was quiet and calm, sure of something else. What was it? What made him so brave? Why didn't he care about her threats? There was a secret hiding in that little grin of his, a secret that Mrs. Harper couldn't figure out. She thought she had all the power. She thought she could scare him into stopping. But every bang of Timmy's hammer said, "Nope, you're wrong." And that drove her crazy. Mrs. Harper took a big step closer to Timmy. "This is your last warning," she said. "Take it down or I'll make sure you're sorry." She glared at him, waiting for him to give up. But Timmy just looked at her for a second, smiled that sneaky smile, and went back to work. Bang, bang, bang. The sound was loud and strong, like a drum beating in the yard. Mrs. Harper's eyes got wide. She wasn't used to losing. She wasn't used to kids who didn't listen. And right then she decided she was going to fight harder. She was going to stop Timmy no matter what. So there they were, Mrs. Harper, the HOA Karen, ready to call the cops, and Timmy, the quiet kid with a hammer and a secret. The fight was on, and it was only going to get bigger. What would happen next? Would Mrs. Harper win, or did Timmy have something up his sleeve that would surprise her? You'll have to wait and see, because this story is just heating up. The sun kept rising and setting, and days went by on Maple Street. Timmy Baxter didn't stop working on his secret project. Every morning he'd grab his hammer, run to the backyard, and get busy. Bang, 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 his little fence was growing, more posts popping up in the grass like tiny trees. He was happy, whistling a tune, his messy hair bouncing as he worked. But across the street, Mrs. Gertrude Harper, the HOA Karen, was not happy. Not one bit. She wouldn't let this go. Oh no, she was on a mission. Mrs. Harper watched Timmy like a hawk. Every day she'd peek over her hedge, her sharp eyes squinting at his mess. That's what she called it, a mess. To her, those wobbly fence posts were the ugliest things she'd ever seen. She'd stand there in her slippers, her arms crossed, muttering to herself. Neighborhood rules, she'd grumble. This kid's breaking all the rules. It's a disaster. She couldn't stand it. She thought Timmy was ruining her perfect street, and she was going to make him stop, no matter what. One afternoon, Mrs. Harper grabbed her phone and started snapping pictures. Click, click, click. She took photos of Timmy's fence from every angle, close up, far away, even from her upstairs window. Proof, she said to herself, nodding like she'd just solved a big mystery. I've got proof this junk is against the rules. She zoomed in on the pictures, her lips tight, planning her next move. She wasn't just going to yell anymore. Nope, she was going to fight harder. The next day, Mrs. Harper marched over to Timmy's yard again. She had a piece of paper in her hand, a note she'd written in big, angry letters. She stomped up to the fence, her face red, and stuck the note right on one of Timmy's posts. It said, "Take this down or else." The words were so big you could read them from across the street. She stepped back, hands on her hips, and glared at Timmy. "You see that?" she shouted. "I mean it. Take it down or you'll be sorry." She thought that would scare him. She thought he'd rip the fence apart right then and there. But Timmy, he didn't even blink. He looked at the note, tilted his head, and smiled that sneaky little smile of his. Then he grabbed another nail and went back to work. Bang, bang, bang. He didn't argue. He didn't yell back. He didn't even say a word. He just kept hammering, adding more posts to his fence like nothing happened. And to top it off, he started whistling, a happy little tune that floated through the air. It was like he didn't have a care in the world. Mrs. Harper's jaw dropped. She couldn't believe it. How could this kid ignore her? How could he act so calm? Mrs. Harper stormed back to her house, muttering louder than ever. "He thinks he's so smart," she said. "He thinks he can win. Well, he's wrong." She slammed her door shut and the whole neighborhood heard it. But Timmy didn't stop. He kept working day after day. The fence got longer. More posts went up. Bang, bang, bang. The sound was steady, like a heartbeat in the backyard. And every time Mrs. Harper peeked over her hedge, she got madder. She'd snap more pictures. She'd write more notes. She even called a meeting with the HOA to complain about that awful boy and his junk. One sunny afternoon, something funny happened. Joey, Timmy's best friend from next door, rode his bike over to see what was going on. Joey was a skinny kid with glasses and a big laugh. He stopped by the fence and watched Timmy hammer for a minute. "Hey, Timmy," Joey said, scratching his head. "Why's Mrs. Harper so mad at you? She's been yelling all week." Timmy didn't look up right away. He drove a nail into the wood, bang, and then turned to Joey with a grin. "Why aren't you mad?" Joey asked. She's being so mean." Timmy wiped some sweat off his forehead and winked. "Wait and see," he said. That's all he said, just 3 little words. Wait and see. Then he went back to hammering. Bang, bang. Joey stood there, confused. "Wait for what?" he asked, but Timmy just kept whistling and smiling. Joey shrugged and rode off, still wondering. And you're probably wondering too, right? Wait for what? What's Timmy up to? Oh, you're gonna love this. It's coming soon. Days turned into a whole week, and Mrs. Harper kept up her attack. She'd stand by her hedge, watching Timmy like a grumpy cat watching a mouse. She'd mutter about rules and standards and that terrible mess. One morning, she even got a measuring tape and checked how tall Timmy's fence was. "Too high," she yelled, even though it was only a foot off the ground. She wrote another note and stuck it on the fence. "This is illegal." Timmy saw it, chuckled, and kept going. Bang, bang. He didn't care about her notes or her yelling. He had a plan, and he wasn't stopping. The neighbors started noticing all this fuss. Mr. Jenkins, the nice old man with the flowers, peeked out his window. "What's Mrs. Harper up to now?" he asked his wife. "She's picking on Timmy," Mrs. Jenkins said, shaking her head. "Poor kid." Down the street, little Sarah stopped drawing with her chalk to watch. Even the mailman slowed down when he passed Timmy's house, curious about the fight. Everyone saw Mrs. Harper getting louder and Timmy staying quiet. It was like a big game, mean Mrs. Harper versus calm little Timmy. Who would win? Timmy kept adding to his fence, and it was starting to look like something. It wasn't just a few posts anymore. It stretched across the yard, wobbly but strong. He'd work in the morning, then after lunch, then until the sun went down. Bang, bang, bang. His hands were red from holding the hammer, but he didn't mind. He'd whistle his tune, smile his smile, and keep going. And every time Mrs. Harper yelled, he'd just nod to himself like he was saying, "Keep talking, lady, you'll see." One day, Mrs. Harper tried something new. She walked over with a big trash bag like she was going to clean up Timmy's mess herself. "If you won't take it down, I will," she said, reaching for a post, but Timmy was quick. He stepped in front of her, still smiling, and shook his head. "Nope," he said, just one word. Mrs. Harper froze. She wasn't expecting that. She huffed and puffed, then stomped away, dragging her trash bag behind her. Timmy watched her go, then went back to work. Bang, bang. That was a little win for him, and it made his grin even bigger. The next morning, something small but cool happened. Joey came back with another kid, Mia, who lived a few houses down. They stood by the fence watching Timmy hammer. "It's getting big," Mia said, her eyes wide. "What is it, Timmy?" Joey asked again. Timmy didn't answer right away. He nailed another board in place, bang, then looked at them. "Wait and see," he said again, winking like he had a secret joke. Mia giggled. "It's gonna be awesome, I bet," she said. Joey nodded. "Yeah, Mrs. Harper's gonna be so mad." They ran off, excited, and Timmy kept working. By now, the fence was long, really long. It went from one side of the yard to the other, with posts every few feet. It wasn't pretty, but it was something, and Timmy wasn't done. He'd sit back sometimes, look at it, and nod. "Almost there," he'd whisper to himself. Almost where? What was there? Mrs. Harper didn't know. The neighbors didn't know. Even Joey and Mia didn't know. But Timmy did. His secret was growing, just like his fence, and every bang of the hammer brought it closer. Mrs. Harper wasn't giving up, though. She kept snapping pictures and writing notes. She'd glare at Timmy from her porch, her phone in her hand, ready to call someone, maybe the HOA, maybe the police. She was sure she'd win. She was sure Timmy's mess would come down. But Timmy, he wasn't worried. He'd whistle, hammer, and smile, like he knew something big was coming. And it was, oh, it was, what was it? You're so close to finding out, just hang on a little longer. Monday morning came and the sun was shining bright over Maple Street. Timmy Baxter was out in his backyard, just like always, hammering away at his secret project. Bang, 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 his fence was long now, stretching all across the yard with wobbly posts and old wood. He was whistling his happy tune, smiling big, when everything changed. Mrs. Gertrude Harper, the HOA Karen, had had enough. She was done waiting. She was done yelling. Today she was going to win, or so she thought. Mrs. Harper stood on her porch, her face redder than ever. She'd been mad all weekend, thinking about Timmy's mess. She snapped pictures, written notes, and even tried to pull the fence down herself, but nothing worked. Timmy kept building, and that sneaky smile of his drove her nuts. So on this Monday morning she finally lost it. She grabbed her phone, her hands shaking with anger, and dialed 911. "Hello, police," she shouted, loud enough for the whole street to hear. "There's an illegal structure in my neighbor's yard. It's ugly and against the rules. Send the cops now." She hung up, crossed her arms, and smirked. She thought she'd won. She thought the police would come, tear down Timmy's fence, and make her the hero of the neighborhood. Oh boy, was she in for a surprise. Timmy heard her yelling, but he didn't stop. Bang, bang, he kept hammering, his grin getting wider. Mrs. Harper marched across the street and stood by his yard, her arms still crossed, her smirk big and proud. "You're done now, Timmy Baxter," she said. "The cops are coming and they'll fix this mess, you'll see." She tapped her foot on the ground, waiting, sure that any second the police would roll up and take her side. She looked at Timmy like he was a little bug she was about to squash. But Timmy, he just kept working, bangs, bang, bang. That smile on his face didn't fade, not even a little. A few minutes passed and then it happened. Two police cars turned onto Maple Street, their lights flashing red and blue. The tires crunched on the road as they pulled up right in front of Timmy's house. Mrs. Harper's smirk grew even bigger. "Here they are," she said, clapping her hands. "I told you, Timmy, you're in big trouble now." She pointed at the fence and waited for the cops to jump out and start yelling at him. The neighbors peeked out their windows, Mr. Jenkins, Mrs. Carter, little Sarah, all watching to see what would happen. Everyone thought Timmy was done for, everyone except Timmy. The car doors opened and two police officers stepped out. One was tall with a serious face and the other, guess who, was Officer Baxter. That's right, Timmy's dad. He was wearing his blue uniform, his badge shining in the sun. Mrs. Harper didn't notice at first. She was too busy gloating. "Officers," she called, waving her arms. "Over here, this boy built an illegal fence. It's a disgrace. Take it down." She pointed at Timmy's project, sure they'd listen to her. But then she saw Officer Baxter's face and her smirk started to slip. She blinked, she squinted, and then her jaw hit the ground. Timmy stopped hammering and looked up. "Hi, Dad," he said, waving with his hammer in his hand. Officer Baxter waved back, a big smile on his face. Mrs. Harper's eyes went wide. "Dad," she squeaked. "What's going on?" She looked from Timmy to Officer Baxter, then back to Timmy, her brain spinning like a top. The other officer, Officer Mike, his partner, stood next to Officer Baxter, his arms crossed, watching Mrs. Harper with a little grin. Officer Baxter walked over to the fence, his boots thumping on the grass. He put his hand on one of Timmy's posts and turned to Mrs. Harper. Ma'am, he said, his voice calm but strong, this junk you're yelling about, it's police property. Timmy's been helping me with a special project. You got a problem with that? Mrs. Harper's mouth opened, but no words came out. She looked like a fish gasping for air. Her face went from red to white in 2 seconds flat. She didn't know what to say. She didn't know what to do. She just stood there, frozen. See, here's the big reveal. Timmy wasn't just building a fence for fun. Nope, he was helping his dad test a new safety project for the police station. Officer Baxter had been working on something cool, a way to make little fences that could keep people safe in emergencies. He'd asked Timmy to build one in the backyard to see if it worked. That's why Timmy had all that wood. That's why he kept hammering, even when Mrs. Harper yelled. It wasn't just a kid's game, it was a real police job. And Mrs. Harper had no idea. Timmy grinned at his dad, proud as could be. Did I do it right, Dad? He asked. Officer Baxter nodded. You did great, Timmy, he said. It's strong and just the right size. Good work. He patted Timmy on the back, and Timmy's smile got so big it almost took over his whole face. Officer Mike walked over and looked at the fence too. Nice job, kid, he said. This could really help us out. Timmy stood tall, his hammer still in his hand, feeling like a hero. Mrs. Harper finally found her voice. Police property, she said, her words all shaky. But it's ugly, it's against the rules, I didn't know. She waved her hands around, trying to explain. I thought he was just being bad, I thought. Officer Baxter cut her off. You thought wrong, ma'am, he said. Timmy's not breaking any rules, he's helping us. Maybe next time ask before you call 911. He didn't yell, but his words hit hard. Mrs. Harper took a step back, her face burning with embarrassment. The neighbors couldn't believe it. Mr. Jenkins laughed out loud from his window. Timmy, with the police, that's wild, he said. Mrs. Carter clapped her hands. Good for you, Timmy, she called. Little Sarah ran outside, her chalk still in her hand, and cheered. Timmy's awesome, she shouted. Everyone was talking now, buzzing about the big surprise. Mrs. Harper's illegal structure wasn't illegal at all. It was something important, something cool. Mrs. Harper tried to say something else. But the HOA, she started, but Officer Mike shook his head. HOA doesn't get to mess with police work, ma'am, he said. This stays right where it is. Mrs. Harper's shoulders slumped. She looked at the fence, then at Timmy, then at the police cars. She'd been so sure she was right. She'd been so sure Timmy was just a silly kid. But now she looked silly, really silly. Timmy put his hammer down and stood next to his dad. He didn't say anything to Mrs. Harper. He didn't need to. His smile said it all those days of hammering, all those notes she stuck on his fence, all her yelling, it didn't stop him. He knew the truth the whole time. He knew his fence was special, and now everyone else knew too. Mrs. Harper had called the cops, thinking they'd take Timmy's side away. But guess what? The cops were already here, because one of them was Timmy's dad. Officer Baxter turned to Timmy. Ready to finish it up? He asked. Timmy nodded. Yeah, Dad, he said, grabbing his hammer again. Bang, bang, he went back to work right there in front of Mrs. Harper. She just stood there watching, her arms hanging by her sides. Her big plan had fallen apart. She'd lost, and Timmy had won big time. The police cars stayed parked for a while, and Officer Baxter and Officer Mike checked the fence some more. They talked about how it could help at the station, maybe keep people safe during parades or big events. Timmy listened, hammering away, proud to be part of it. Mrs. Harper finally turned around and shuffled back to her house, her slippers dragging on the ground. She didn't say another word. She didn't have to. The whole neighborhood knew she'd been wrong. Mrs. Gertrude Harper stood there, her mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. Her face, which had been red with anger just minutes ago, turned as white as a ghost. I didn't know," she squeaked, her voice all shaky and small. She looked at Officer Baxter, Timmy's dad, and then at Timmy, then back at the police cars. She was so embarrassed she didn't know what to do. She'd been so sure she was right, so sure Timmy was just a naughty kid. But now she looked silly in front of everyone. Officer Baxter shook his head at her, his face serious but calm. "Next time mind your own business," he said. His words were simple, but they hit hard. Mrs. Harper's shoulders drooped and she took a tiny step back. She didn't argue, she didn't yell, she couldn't. She'd lost and she knew it. The whole neighborhood was watching from their windows and porches. Mr. Jenkins, Mrs. Carter, little Sarah, everyone saw Mrs. Harper's big plan fall apart. She called the cops to stop Timmy, but the cops were on Timmy's side. How funny was that? Mrs. Harper turned around slowly, her slippers dragging on the grass. She didn't look at anyone. She just slinked back to her house, her head down like a dog with its tail between its legs. She pushed open her door and disappeared inside, shutting it with a quiet click. The neighbors whispered to each other, giggling a little. "She's not so tough now," Mr. Jenkins said. "Timmy showed her," Mrs. Carter added. Everyone was smiling, everyone except Mrs. Harper. Timmy, though, he was grinning ear to ear. He picked up his hammer again and got back to work. Bang, bang, bang. He finished his fence right there with his dad and Officer Mike watching. The fence wasn't just a bunch of posts anymore. It was strong and long, stretching across the yard like a little wall. Timmy stepped back, wiped his sweaty hands on his shorts, and nodded. "Done," he said, his voice full of pride. His dad clapped him on the shoulder. "Great job, Timmy," Officer Baxter said. "You're a big help." Word spread fast. Kids from all over Maple Street started coming by to check it out. Joey and Mia were first, riding their bikes up to the yard. "Wow, Timmy," Joey said, his eyes big. "You built this for the police," Mia giggled. "It's so cool." Soon more kids showed up, Sarah with her chalk, Tommy with his soccer ball, even shy little Ben from down the block. They ran around the fence, touching the posts and asking Timmy questions. "Did you really trick Mrs. Harper?" they asked. Timmy just smiled and shrugged. "I just kept building," he said. It turns out, Timmy wasn't just a regular kid. Nope, he was a hero in the making. He'd helped his dad with a real police project, and he'd stood up to Mrs. Harper without even yelling. The kids looked at him like he was the coolest person ever. And Mrs. Harper, she didn't dare peek over her hedge again. Not that day, not the next day, not ever. She stayed in her house, quiet as a mouse, knowing Timmy had won. Okay, let's talk about what happened with Timmy and Mrs. Harper. Here's the thing, sometimes the smallest kid on the block, like Timmy, has the biggest tricks up their sleeve. He wasn't tall or loud or super strong, but he had a smart plan and a big heart. He didn't let Mrs. Harper scare him even when she yelled and called the cops. He just kept hammering, smiling, and doing his thing. And guess what? That little kid turned out to be the strongest one of all. He had power nobody saw coming, not even Mrs. Harper. And then there's the loudest bullies, like Mrs. Harper. She was always shouting, pointing fingers, and acting like she was the boss of everyone. She thought being loud made her big and important. But when Timmy's secret came out, she crashed hard. Her yelling didn't win. Her mean notes didn't work. She ended up looking silly, walking back to her house with her head down. The loudest ones, they're usually the ones who fall the hardest when they're wrong. So here's a cool lesson for you. Next time someone tries to push you around, don't be afraid. You don't have to yell back or run away. Just smile and keep going like Timmy did. You might have your own secret power, something special inside you that they don't see. Maybe it's being brave or smart or kind. Whatever it is, it's yours, and it can make you stronger than any bully. Timmy showed us that. He didn't fight with words or fists, he fought with his hammer and his grin. And he won. Think about it for a second. Have you ever seen a bully get what's coming to them? Maybe it was at school when someone mean got caught and had to say sorry. Or maybe it was at home when a bossy kid learned they couldn't always win. It feels good when that happens, right? It's like the world says, hey, being mean doesn't work. Timmy's story is like that. Mrs. Harper tried to be the big boss, but Timmy showed her. And everyone, that quiet strength beats loud bullying every time. So what do you think? You're tougher than you know, just like Timmy. You've got your own tricks, your own power, even if nobody sees it yet. Next time life gets hard or someone's mean, remember this story. Keep going, keep smiling, and watch what happens. You might surprise everyone just like Timmy did. I'd love to hear from you. Have you ever seen a bully lose like Mrs. Harper did? Did you ever stand up to someone and win? Drop your story below in the comments. I can't wait to read it. Let's cheer for the little guys who turn out to be the big heroes.